Hey guys, this is Dave, and I have a very interesting device that we are going to be taking a look at today. Before me, in this very simple, small, unassuming box lies the most expensive dongle that I've ever reviewed. This device is made of 24 karat gold plated titanium alloy, and it is also a limited edition piece. Now, of course, as I always say, you should judge a device's value based on the sum of the whole. So, of course, you should always take into account the materials used in its construction, the build quality, the internal components when you are determining the value of a device. But here on GIZAUDIO, ultimately, it always comes down to a device's sound performance. So, of course, the big question is, when I consider all of that, do I feel like this device is worth $599? Well, so this is everything you get in the package. You have the device, of course. You also get a little bit of a longer USB Type-C cable, and that's it. And again, this is priced at $599. It is a limited edition piece, and as far as the production run, as far as the number of units, the only information I could find was on a website I had never heard of before, so I don't know how reliable this number is, but there was a mention that they are only producing 50 units. Again, I have no idea whether that's accurate because I couldn't really corroborate it on any of the official sites. Now, I should also point out that there are no production number indicators or markings on my device, on the packaging, at least that I could find. Granted, that could be because this is maybe a pre-production review unit, I don't know. But if that's the case, I guess it could be different on the actual full production unit. So as I had mentioned, there isn't much in the way of features, at least not features that you might expect to see with a higher end device, aside from the volume buttons and the dual outputs. But there is no display, there's no battery, there's no gain control, and I did try pushing the volume up and down simultaneously, and that did not seem to affect the gain levels at all. It doesn't have Bluetooth, and there aren't any LED light indicators. And I totally understand that this could all be the audio engineer's intent, and that they could have just wanted to take a minimalist approach and try to concentrate all of their efforts towards minimizing the possibility of interference or signal degradation by leaving out some of those additional components. And that was one of the things I loved about the Questyle M59. So those are some of the features that it doesn't have, but what about what it does have? Well, again, there are physical volume buttons. It has both a 3.5 single-ended and 4.4 balanced output, and the 3.5 does double as an optical output as well. So that's nice to have. Something else, again, interesting to note is that apparently the housing is made of titanium alloy, and this gold color you are seeing here is not paint, but actual 24 karat gold plating. Now, I should also point out that the information about its construction, so the gold color being 24 karat gold plating and the titanium alloy, that was information that I only came across on social media. Granted, it was on iKKo's official Facebook page as far as I could tell, but there is no mention of the housing material, again, being gold-plated titanium alloy, on the official website or the official product page, at least that I could find. So again, I really don't have any way of corroborating that information. And as far as the materials that they used for the volume buttons, obviously they are supposed to emulate some type of gemstone, but since there is no mention of that on the official product page or anywhere else that I could find, I would have to assume they're not real. Now, as far as the feel of the buttons, they do feel good. They're easy to press and they feel clicky, but they're not loose and they don't rattle. I counted about 60 volume steps. Now, something else to note, there are no volume indicators, so you just have to kind of guess. Of course, if you go by the branding on the front, you can see that based on the branding orientation, so that's with the buttons on my left, that the bottom button is the volume down button. Anyway, just something to note. So that's the outside. On the inside, this uses the ES9039Q2M DAC chip, and then on the op amp side, there are two OPA 1622s and two SGM 8262 op amps. And as for the power output, the 3.5 single-ended is going to give you 175 milliwatts at 32 ohms, and then the 4.4 balanced output is going to give you 520 milliwatts at 32 ohms. So that is pretty solid power output for a dongle. Now, as far as sample rates and its decoding capabilities, I couldn't find anything on the official website again, but after doing some digging based on what I found on social media and a few other websites, it could apparently handle up to 32-bit PCM and DSD 256. Okay, I think that covers most of the non-sound related attributes. So let's go ahead and move on to sound. Okay, so we've gone over all of the non-sound related stuff, but what about sound? Well, as far as some of the headphones I used for testing, I did pair the ITM07 with my LCD3s, my Mese Poets, Aria Stealths, HD800S, 109 Pros. Then of course I also paired it with some of my mid-tier and entry-tier full-size sets like the 105 AER, P2 Pros, SV023s, and then the 99 Classics. And then as for IEMs that I paired it with my Hakuyas, Divas, Cantors, FA19s, Noirs, and several others. So I think I tested it with a pretty wide variety of sets. And then as far as comparisons, I did compare it with a lot of other dongles and devices as well. Of course, my reference dongle right now is the Questyle M18i and then the M15i, and then I recently did acquire the Nunchaku. I also still love the Hibi FC6, and then just for fun, of course, I also pulled out some of my older stuff like the Moon River 2, the Shanling UA5, and then the Lotu Paw S1. So those are some of my favorite dongles, and those are basically my standards when it comes to dongle style devices. But then I also did compare it with some of my DAPs because of where this is priced. So I compared it with the DX180, the XM10 Limited right here, the R6 Pro Max, and then a couple of others. Okay, so now it's time to get down to the important part. So how does the ITM07 sound? Well, with IEMs, it sounds excellent. And I will get to headphones and drivability in a few minutes, but where this device really demonstrates its prowess is with IEMs. And when I was doing my side-by-side comparisons with, again, my top dongles and even with my DAPs, it pretty much kept pace with almost all of them. It's very transparent. There is very little coloration. Everything sounds natural. It's very resolving. It's not bright. It's not clinical. I didn't hear any sharpness in its presentation. It has excellent treble extension, which means all of the air and all of those micro nuances are present. So it doesn't lean cold or clinical, but neither does it lean the opposite direction or warm. There's no obvious coloration in the mid bass or bass. There isn't any real perceivable excessive warmth, yet male vocals do still sound adequately rich and they have good note weight. The bass is textured, dynamics are excellent, kick drums have ample impact, yet it's also incredibly natural sounding. But I think the attributes that stood out to me the most were its speed and its detail retrieval. And those attributes were present in every part of its presentation, from the lowest frequencies all the way up to the highest. And again, it still maintained a very natural and even what I would consider an almost physical characteristic in its presentation. And I think those are the sometimes subtle but still noticeable attributes that can help take your listening experience to that next level. Now, as far as technical performance, of course, this is ultimately going to come down to the capabilities of your headphones or IMs. And we've already talked about detail levels. We know this provides excellent levels of detail and can basically keep up with my best dongles. But that also applies to its soundstage, its imaging, layering. It's simply very, very good. And when I pair this with some of my best IMs, I feel like the ITM07's performance is worthy of them. And while I can't say it's necessarily pushing them at their peak performance levels, I do feel like I'm getting pretty close. Close enough that I don't feel like I'm compromising my overall listening experience in any way. Now, I did notice that with sensitive IMs, I could hear just a very small amount of background noise, but only with my sensitive IMs. So with all of my other IMs, I heard no noise whatsoever. So if you do have sensitive IMs and the slightest amount of background noise bothers you, then that may be something to keep in mind. Oh, and this does cost $599. That's just one other small thing you may want to consider. Now, as far as its performance with headphones, now I know I say this a lot, but even though dongle style DACs can perform at pretty high levels, especially with IEMs, depending on a device's power output and level output, many of them can be kind of limited when it comes to pushing some harder to drive full-size headphones, especially when compared to more powerful devices like the XM10 Limited, the R6 Pro Max, XD05 Pro, DX340, or even something like the Hibi FD5, which puts out 1,500 milliwatts and 8 volts RMS of level output. But those devices are also huge comparatively, and they're certainly not pocketable. And while the ITM07 may not necessarily be able to drive some of those, again, harder to drive full-size headphones to their peak performance levels, it is really impressive and certainly respectable for a device this size. And even what I would consider to be at least worthy of some of my higher end IEMs and headphones. Now, as far as comparisons, if I'm only comparing apples to apples, so just comparing this with my other highest performing dongles, as I said earlier, its performance is basically on par with all of these and is pretty much pacing right up there along with my M18i, again, which is my absolute favorite dongle. And gosh, I only wish I still had the DC Elite on hand to compare this with, but my guess is it would probably keep up with that too. And of course, this is also going up against some other pretty big players in the portable DAC game, like the Chord Mojo 2 and the iFi Gobar Kinsei, I think, or Kinsei. But I don't have those. I have heard them, but I don't have them on hand, so I obviously can't do side-by-side comparisons with them. But look, let's just go ahead and summarize everything here with the ITM07. Look, I don't know how much titanium alloy costs, and I certainly don't know how much it would cost to plate it in 24 karat gold. And I also understand that this is a limited edition piece. And I really do like the matte gold finish. It looks really striking, but at the end of the day, all I know is that based on my experience with my absolute best dongles that I either currently own or have owned in the past, and where those typically land, even the best ones land in terms of pricing in comparison with the ITM07 and where it's priced, I'm having a little bit of a hard time reconciling all of that. Does it sound good? Yes, it sounds very, very good. But if I'm being honest, it doesn't necessarily sound any better than my M18i, which costs a lot less. So anyway, so there you go. But as I said, this is certainly an interesting piece. Now, what would be really interesting and helpful also is if there are any of you out there that might be able to, I don't know, shed more light on gold plating and maybe even the use of titanium alloy and the associated cost, I don't know. Or if you've ever seen any additional information online about the pieces used in the volume buttons, or if there's anything that I'm potentially maybe not seeing, please let me know in the comment section. And one other thing is that there is stuff out there on social media and again, other websites, but it's in other languages. And I did try using the translate option, but you know how that can be. It's not always super accurate. So look, I am totally willing to admit there may be a lot more information out there and maybe it just got lost in translation. But in any case, I do hope that you found this as interesting and as intriguing as I have. Again, it is definitely an interesting piece. And again, the bottom line is that it really is an excellent sounding device. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on the comment section on this one. And again, I do hope this was maybe helpful or at least interesting. So I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. If you are new to the GIZAUDIO channel and you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go a step further, you can also support us through our Patreon. I'll be sure and leave a link in the description. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video. Please share this video. I hope you have an awesome day.